All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Habitual Growth Podcast. I've got my voice back. So guess what? We're going to do the full intro today. I'm Nathan. This is Lisa. And this is the podcast where excuses come to die, discipline is built, and lives are changed. We are all about transformation here, which is awesome because this is the perfect entry into the topic we're going to cover today. But really, at the end of the day, we want you not just to listen, but to apply what is being said here so that you can go out, make your life better, become more successful, and make the world a better place. And Lisa, you were just sharing something that I think is really applicable to everybody, of course, but at this time of year, especially as we head into the holidays towards the end of the year when people are thinking about, oh, what do I have to get done? How do I enjoy the holidays, but also keep my professional career performance moving forward? You were talking about an example of how somebody gave you a pretty exciting compliment. So rather than steal your thunder, why don't you share that? Because I'm excited that you got that compliment as much as you
Ah,
are excited that you got that compliment.
yes, absolutely. And it's sad that it's actually a compliment, but
True.
it really it really highlights why everything we do at Habitual Growth is so important and why living with intent through your actions sets you apart to be successful. And the backstory, real quick, is I'm working on a number of projects with individuals across the organization. And one person actually messaged me today on the side and just said, "Hey, I want to say thank you. It's really great to be partnered with somebody that is action oriented and gets stuff done." And well, I think that's like the greatest compliment in the world because I also love people who take action and drive and make things happen for themselves and for their teams. It also made me a little bit sad because I feel like it's not the norm, whether that's in your personal life or professional life. We kind of have a tendency to float. And so when you meet people that do take action and drive to timelines or move things forward with intention, it actually stands out because it's like, oh, that person is doing something different. And that's too bad. You know, we should be a society and a culture of people who make things happen for themselves, for their families, for their teams, etc.
Yeah. So number one, congratulations. I do
Oh,
think
thank
that
you.
a tremendous accomplishment. And I say that just because it really shows sometimes we do things internally and you don't know if they actually make an impact or resonate with anybody else externally. But I also know that you came from a place where you didn't always get those compliments. You were
Nope.
almost a person that waited for that. So first and foremost, I just want to highlight like that's the work that you've been putting in and just to share with our listeners, like this is a skill that you can develop, right? People aren't naturally born, some more so than others have an inclination to move faster, but you can build the skill set of being more productive, of being more efficient, using your time effectively, communicating in a better manner so that you can have these bigger impacts on other people that essentially are going to be inspired by people like yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I do agree. I think the bar is incredibly low, especially in bigger corporate environments like you are mentioning. That's not a blanket statement. That's not meant to be
Right.
derogatory to anybody else that's in those types of environments, but it's very easy for people just to kind of be average. At Habitual Growth, you and I talk frequently about how we don't want to be average because it means you aren't being effective. You're not actually reaching in
Yeah.
internally and finding out what you're really made of to move things forward. And as action oriented people, we're all about taking our A players and making them A plus players, taking B players and moving them up to A players. And so it's good to hear when people actually take that step and it's being noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the follow on, right, is if you become a person of intentional action, people recognize that, obviously, in this example, but then people learn to do the same. So people that are watching and maybe they aren't as action oriented or they want someone else to go first, actually learn how to change their behavior by watching how you are when you take action. And I think that is really important because you and I have talked about many times, like setting an example as a parent, setting an example as a leader in a company. There are many, many different ways to lead, but one of them is through that intentional action. And the other part that I left off was he said, you're dependable. And that comes from consistent action when people know that if you say something, you're going to do it and the actions will follow. And I think that this example just embodied everything we are at Habitual Growth and why it's so important. And maybe people look at their lives and they think, hey, I don't know how to do this across the board. Just pick one area, one small area where you could start to lead through intentional action
Mhm.
day after day. And don't do it to get a compliment, but do it to prove to yourself that you can, and you start to make small steps in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago during one of our sit downs. And discipline obviously is there, but it's the importance of having standards, right?
Yeah.
And actually using your identity to be the thing that you want to be, not the outcome, right? And so, as an example, you're not saying, I'm a leader because I'm a leader. You're saying, I'm a
Right.
leader because operate with integrity and I operate with discipline, which means I have consistency, which means I'm going to communicate well, which means I'm going to deliver. And we oftentimes have a society that simply just does the basics. They just
Yeah.
do the bare minimum. And you and I, obviously we reference Andy Priscilla here quite a bit, but he talks about this all the time, which is
Yeah.
very true, which is like people don't want to be noticed. They don't want to step up. They do the bare minimum. And I've just learned not to congratulate people that do the minimum because it's the expectation. I don't even do this
Right.
with kids anymore. It's like, hey, I cleared the table, and it's like, great, you should be doing that,
Yeah.
right? Hey, Dad, I put my laundry away. Okay, well, good. You should be doing that. Like, I'm excited you're doing that. But at the end of the day, like, this is the expectation about living in the household when you're on a team and you're doing that. That standard that I was mentioning a little bit earlier is important because it is that, right? People know, like, hey, the bar's here for Lisa. I know she's going to hit that and then give me some more. So I'm going to watch for some more. And then I'm going to make sure I'm hitting my own standard.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe you think differently, but you're giving the kid example, and it doesn't mean that you disregard behavior that meets the standard, right? Maybe it's a simple thank you periodically. Hey, thank you for always X, Y, and Z, right? So I'll give an example. Like with my team, there are certain communication standards that I have. So I will periodically respond back, either email or IM, and just say, hey, thank you for making sure that you looped me in. I appreciate that you consistently do this, and then move on with my day. Versus when someone really goes above and beyond what, my expectations are or above where the standard is, that's a different type of call out where I will recognize that maybe more publicly or in a bigger way, because one, you want to reinforce the behavior that meets the standard, right? Especially everybody likes a compliment periodically, but then don't make it such a big deal that when someone goes above and beyond, that it seems same.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's funny because I was actually going to go there too. I was going to say, this is the other thing that really jumps out at me is the person took the time to say that. And to me, it's different when, we talk about differentiation a lot. How do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
If you want to be average and you're satisfied in that lifestyle, you're going to have a satisfactory lifestyle. That's not our audience. That's not the people we're going to we're talking to right now. We are talking about the people that say, how do I be better? How do I find more potential? How do I be more productive? How do I be a leader? Right? How can I learn and apply that to my daily life? And this is one of those ways. Right? It's different for a manager to say, hey, employee X or Y, you're doing a great job. Like, I really appreciate these things. That reinforcement is there. That stuff is really great. It takes a different type of person to dig in and say, hey, manager, hey, Lisa, you did a great job. Thanks for leading. I've noticed this. It's really inspired me to be better. And it does two things. One, it makes you stand out to that person.
For sure. Yeah.
That manager who's going to say, wow, they actually took the time to recognize this. And two, it actually validates somebody else's behavior. If you like that, give them a sincere compliment. I try to do this all the time. But like, every person is a person. Everybody has the same self-doubt and negative feelings and internal battles that they're facing. And you never know, like, just because somebody puts on a happy face doesn't mean they're actually dealing with that same thing internally. And you and I have had some, off-camera conversations around this week. Sometimes it's actually pretty heavy. And so just reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I've noticed this. Like, you are my manager. You're doing a great job. You're inspiring me in the right way. I really like these characteristics about you. Really validates the things that people are doing and putting effort in, even if you don't think it's that big of a deal. More often than not, that comment is going to stick out and help you differentiate more, but also inspire the other person to keep doing more of that thing that you like.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I have nothing to add. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, and I like this topic as well. Like I said, we're moving into the holidays. I think it's really important for us to start thinking about, how do we remain productive? How do we remain strong as we head into the end of this year, start thinking about goals for 2026 and all that good stuff. And I just really think having a standard is the spot that everybody needs to start, whether it's your diet, whether it's maintaining exercise, whether it's getting on a program, whether it's, finishing up a project, like setting these little milestones, setting the identity of the person that you want to be heading into the end of this year, and making sure that you're accountable and you're holding your own standards so that you're not deviating that no matter what happens in the next set of months.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for people that maybe have never done this before or say, what do you mean I need to set standards for myself? Just think about one area that you want some improvement in. Maybe it's not, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Maybe it's, I just want to feel better by the end of the year by being more active. And then build some small actions behind that can help you drive consistency of action, right, towards something, a change that you're trying to make. And through that process, you will start to develop your own set of standards. So if you start by just walking 30 minutes a day, eventually that becomes the standard, right? And then you get to do the next thing above that standard. So there's a new bar that you're setting. And don't try to change everything all at once. Pick areas that maybe are one or two that are you're really wanting to create that change, or that you are not where you want to be. Maybe you don't use the word standard, but you're lacking in a certain area. Start to focus there. I mean, there's still plenty of time in this year to start to make changes, and then start off the new year with a new set of standards for what you will do in the following year.
Yeah. Yeah. And just when you share that, you reminded me of something that I think is really good. So hopefully people, our subscribers, like people that are listening are subscribing, and you had listened to a couple of episodes, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, but you had actually talked about your frustration getting into a new business environment and finding like everything moves so slowly.
Yeah.
And you were just tired because nobody would actually make the change. And everybody was kind of like, this is just the way that culture is. I think it's really interesting that in the last 2 months, you're now getting compliments, which are, instead of the fight you were having, you're now getting actual support from those teams members or your peers or whoever that compliment came from of, hey, we actually needed somebody like this in the business, not somebody that just went with status quo, but somebody that was willing to speak up, have a high standard, make things a little bit more efficient for the team, and really inspire people. Because if you don't have that vision, if you're not casting something that inspires people, obviously it's kind of a moot point because they have no incentive to actually be better. But I just find that juxtaposition interesting. And you did it in such a short time, a couple of months. You went from, hey, everybody's resisting me, to, wow, people are actually paying attention. And now they're being inspired because I've just held my ground and held my standard. And now it's making a difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that compliment.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, before we part, anything else you want to add to the audience?
No, just take a look at your life, maybe over the weekend, see where you want to make improvement, and start off with, actions on your essential action list that will move you forward. Pick the next 30 days, the next 7 days, whatever it might be that, you want to set a goal towards, and start to build action as an intentional, essential action on your list towards an area that you need to raise a standard in your own life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure you're using that daily essential action. That is exactly what it's there for. Operating with integrity, making sure you are delivering on your commitments every single day. And so with that, hopefully this was a lot of value for the audience. Please hit subscribe, comment below, let us know what you're thinking. And as always, if there are topics that you would like Lisa and I to discuss during these weekly sessions, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know and we'll dive in.
All right. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Thanks, Nate.
Talk to you in a bit. Bye.